My name is Maureen Filbert. That's Philbert. I'm a student support assistant and drama tutor. My origin, I'm Black British. My father was from Trinidad and my mother is English and a Northerner, or Geordie rather, I should say.
My name is Sean Ebenezer Julius Adelia. I am 26 years of age. My occupation is digital graphic designer and web designer. And I was born here, so I guess I'm British, right? But I'm black, so I guess I'm African, right?
My name is Takoni. I am 23 years old. I am African, or British, Black British, and I'm a student nurse.
My name is Ewan Robert Bruce. I'm 39. I'm a media tutor at Hackney Community College, and I'm British. I live in Clapton, Hackney.
My name is Merritt Braid. I am 24 years old. I am a journalist / student, and I am from Nigeria. I'm a British Nigerian.
My name is Wiley Adeni. Culture is it's the foundation of what makes you, where you as a person have begun. So to me, my culture will be of African. You might hear the odd West Indian come out of me sometimes, but again, it's all African.
Me personally, when I was growing up, my culture was to be British, but also to take on my Trinidadian side, whatever that meant, in the big term, loosely of what that meant, because my dad never really spoke about his own roots. And I think why he never spoke about it really was still sort of like that embarrassment of, black people being slaves hundreds of years ago. And I think he still felt some sort of angst about it.
Culture is a way of living that involves, tastes, likes, dislikes. Probably you can tie religion into culture. All sorts of things: food, music, arts, clothes, fashion, even looks. It's everything's a way of life for a group of people, I guess.
My idea of culture is the way you behave, where you get your morals from, your preferences and things you're taught from your parents. That's part of your culture.
I think culture is what is kind of created by society. It gives you an insight of where someone's from, like the background. It's things that people do, habits, beliefs, values.
Culture to me is the materials and resources we use to understand the world we live in.
To be Westernised is, for me, what I will feel is it's the connection of other cultures. Because you could be from one country and still be English, but you can't be from Nigeria and turn around and tell them that you're a Jamaican.
Western society, it's bad to say, but I think it's viewed to be more civilized than like the Eastern world. So where I'm from in Nigeria, obviously that's not Western world. Like China, that's not Western world. Westernized, I think, just means that you're more civilized and there's more, I won't say rules, but the laws are more democratic. People have a bit more say.
All right, so do you know what being Westernised is?
I don't know, because me personally, when I remember hearing that word being bandied about, Westernised, I think it was sort of like late 70s, early 80s. And I thought, well, what does that mean? And to me, it was people who were a different culture to me, i.e. Indian a lot of the time, or Pakistani. And I saw it that they were being Westernised, wearing our clothes, like showing our legs, if you like, showing the arms. Me it was like all about clothes and what you wore, and that's what I thought being westernised was.
I think it's adapting to, I don't know, a certain, let's say, culture or way of kind of living or being.
For example, someone coming from the Middle East, from a very traditional background, to live in a Western country may feel as though they being westernised is some sort of transformation they have to go through. I myself haven't really ever experienced that. I've been pretty much the same person since I was about 12 years old.
I'd imagine it means that to conform what you traditionally practice in your, I guess, I don't know, Eastern cultures, but then you adopt Western influences. For instance, I don't know, you may say you'll stop wearing traditional clothing and start wearing, I don't know, like jeans.
Like, how can you realise a person is westernised?
Accent, number one. Attitude, number two. I think the way people look on each other within this country, you know, even though it's multicultural, that doesn't mean to say that me and you are going to share from the same pot.
Well, like I said, I think it goes back to clothes. To me, if they're wearing jeans and a T-shirt and to me it's like, oh, they're westernised, because they're being a bit rebellious.
Because you don't, unless you kind of find out where their background, where they've come from, and how their way of life was, let's say. I don't think you really can find out straight away.
It's the way they dress, the way they act, talking to them, you know, certain things that they can relate to. Being in the West, I mean, things that you would do back in the 60s, 70s in this country that you wouldn't have done in another country.
Not just fashion, but also like, I don't know, like, for instance, say dinner time, like instead of eating traditional foods, you'll, I don't know, bang on, you know, like fish and chips. Also, like I said before, the fashion, you change it up instead of like, well, I think you'll be westernised if you look at your parents, and there's a big difference in like what you're eating, what you're listening to, how you dress and such things. Like if you're more, I don't know, conform to like, you know, what your friends are doing around you from different, I don't know, nationalities in your current location, then I guess you have been westernised.
You can tell somebody's westernised by the way they dress. You can tell they're westernised by the way they carry themselves, their demeanour. Sometimes you can even tell just by little things like their face. I know it sounds really bad, but I feel like I know if you're straight off the boat, that expression means if you've just come from Africa, which obviously means you would not be westernised, I can tell his facial image from somebody who has been living in this country or was born in this country. You can just see it in their face.
One last question. Do you think that being westernised has... do you think being westernised has anything to do with rebellion?
No, I don't. I think the Western world is just a form of organisation. This is how they organise themselves. They're not better or worse than anyone else. I mean, you can rebel against it, but being westernised isn't a form of rebellion.
Do you know what? That is the thing about being westernised, yeah. It's to be able to have the freedom to be who you want to be. But then also is also having that freedom. I mean, it's also having that thing to let people see what it is that you want them to see. You see, because if you're a Muslim, then you're restricted. If you're a thing, then you're restricted. Then immediately we know exactly what your culture is about. But when you're westernised, you couldn't tell me who I am. Same way I couldn't tell you who you are. So it's basically having that freedom to be able to be open and being yourself when you want to be. Because I mean, that is what the main thing is all about in the end. It's about it's having the freedom to do what you want to do and be who you want to be. Some people might take it as being rebellious, yeah. But again, if depending on the individual how they want to take it. So I think at the end of the day, the westernisation, to be westernised is basically how it can happen for you to be who you want to be?
No, I don't think it has anything to do with rebellion. I think people rebel in their different cultures anyway. I guess the only influence it probably has is kind of giving people another choice, a new insight on life. So if you're used to a certain thing and something else has been introduced to you, and your eyes have been open to a new kind of way of life, you might want to rebel against where you're from and what you're used to.
I think there are going to be lots of cultures who are rebellion. You just look at it with the arranged marriage as an example. You know, that is a huge thing at the moment, and that's young girls start beginning to rebel against the setup of a marriage. You know, they want an education. They want to go to university. They don't want what their parents have. They are in this country, where in this country you can now, a woman can actually be the manager, be in charge of something, run a business, have a mortgage. Women these days can do so many things now that they never used to be able to do, that I think young girls who are from a different culture or their families, that's the difficulty for their parents to understand. And I think that's going to be maybe a major sort of conflict.
I would say it would be if you are from a very strict, for example, a strict Muslim background or a strict Middle Eastern background, and you take it upon yourself to rebel against that, then conspicuous displays of westernisation would be a very vivid form of rebellion, I would have thought.
What do you think it means for the future of the world if the trend of being westernised spreads?
It would mean for the rest of the world that old traditions will die out. Old practices would stop, I guess. The world would be following the Western world in how they approach things, their way of thinking. So, it provides, I guess, a benefit. Like if you think about technology in like third world countries, developing country, that would help. But it'd lose out a lot of the richness that it had, and also, it'll lose a bit of the difference, which would be a shame, if everyone became the same. There wouldn't be any kind of diversity in the world. I guess it'll be boring.